Hi, everyone. It's John Galante, president of AE Ventures and also the publishers here of Tech Home Builder. And I'm really excited to be doing this impromptu webcast interview with my longtime industry friends, Tim Costello and Melissa Moore. They are our industry Marco Polos. They are actually at the Consumer Electronics Show, which not many builders attend, which is the world's largest technology event. And they're scouting out what's going on with innovations that will eventually make their way into the new home market. And before I get their hot takes on all the stuff that they've been checking out at the event, I want you to talk a little bit about yourselves, because most folks know you from your 20 plus years founding and developing BDX, the industry consortium that helps builders adopt technology, but you're in different roles right now. Can you explain that a little bit to folks before we launch into the report?
Sure, Melissa, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It kind of feels very much the same. I mean, it really does. I think our role,
except for managing all the thousands of employees all around the world,
and the customer issues and those things, that is okay that we don't have that. But we've always been about leading the industry in digital transformation and bringing new technologies into the industry. And now we kind of get to do that full time versus, to Tim's point, running a company and being responsible for actual products. And for me, it's super fun because I'm neutral, right? My job is to go in and work with our builders and developers and manufacturers and help them find the best solutions that are good for them, right? And not one size fits all. Anyway, what we're doing is we are consulting, we're helping with events, we're speaking, serving on boards, and just really having a rockin' time.
I mean, I think one of the coolest things now, John, is that we get to help companies understand and navigate the new home space. There are so many companies trying to bring new technologies, new materials, new processes and services into our industry. But you would think the home building industry might be really simple. It's really complex. There's so many trades. The supply chain is so complex. There's so many players. And coming from the outside, these new companies, they don't have a chance. So now we get kind of the opportunity to help so many different service providers, trades, and companies really understand the market and figure out how they might be able to penetrate, go-to-market strategies. Right. And that's something that obviously we didn't really have the opportunity to do, or the position
the bandwidth
when you're at BDX.
And there's a new brand that you're working under. What is that?
It's called Built for the Future, and it's at built4f.com. And we kind of picked that because it's this whole issue of we really need to start building a completely new industry, new products, new technologies, a new way of thinking. And we have an expression: if you're not building the future, then you're really not building at all. And that's what we're kind of driving: get people focused on what's next, how do we get there, and how do we actually make positive steps to the future.
Right. And so folks can learn more about your advisory services and such at built4f.com. Is that right?
Built4f.com. That's
gotcha.
It.
Cool. All right, let's get on with the report. So you all have been out at CES for a couple of days now, or maybe even 3. You were there for the CES Unveiled press conference.
That's correct. For your audience, John, maybe we'll help them understand just a little bit the context of CES.
Yeah.
So there are 2 days of just press events. So there are thousands of press people from all over the world that come to Las Vegas for Sunday and Monday, and there are just press events at that point in time. And then the Consumer Electronics Association then picks kind of a bunch of the leading edge and award-winning products and puts them all together for almost a 4-hour event where you can then meet one-on-one with each of those companies without kind of the hordes, of people. And then on Tuesday, it opens up for 4 days where 150,000 people from all over the world descend, and it's just insane. And you walk, hundreds of miles, and it
makes IBS look kind of tiny.
It does. It does make IBS look like a quaint little trade show. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But what happened with CES about 15, 20 years ago is it went from a trade show for the consumer electronics retailers to this broader conception of a technology event and really a showcase for the media and for Wall Street and investment analysts on what's going on in technology. And it's really transformed in having events like the press event beforehand showcase the transformation of the event.
And it has been incredibly successful that way. There are thousands of startups from all over the world. You're talking about, millions of square feet of dedicated space. It's not just the Las Vegas Convention Center. It's all of the Venetian Convention Centers. It's ARIA. It's the entire city basically becomes one huge forum. And you get CEOs from companies like Walmart and Microsoft coming and kind of laying out their vision, because as you said, it is also an event for Wall Street and for analysts. If you want to show technology leadership, you better be here and you better have a message.
Right. The other thing I find incredibly interesting is normally when you go to trade shows, you meet the marketing and the salespeople, right? In this case, you're meeting like the PhD guy that was the inventor of the kernel. And I mean, there's PhDs everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and you really get the essence, the passion of what was that kernel that triggered them to go down this path of inventing a new product or a new company.
I mean, that is neat. You're in a booth and you're talking to somebody. And look, they have normal booth people there from marketing and PR and all that. But you're going, look, I need to talk to somebody from R&D or from engineering or whatever. And they go, oh, I'll get them.
Yeah.
And they bring them right over. They're there. I mean, you can have really in-depth conversations about the technology with each of these companies at their booths.
Yep. Very cool. All right. Well, let's get into some of the findings from you all that are relevant for our friends in the home building business and multifamily developers and operators. And we're going to go ladies first. So Melissa, yes, chivalry is not quite yet dead. It's close, but it's not quite yet dead.
Right. And once you start with Tim, there
would be no Melissa opportunity. So we're going to start with Melissa.
No airtime.
You have a few big buckets of categories of innovation that you came across that you thought were particularly interesting and relevant. And
I did. Yeah. So I kind of hit three. Well, I hit a lot of things, but I kind of boiled it down to three things that I thought were really relevant. We may not get to hit all three today, but we'll touch upon them. One was AI, right? And everybody goes, we're all talking about AI, but I went into the conference. There's lots of cool tools, whiz bang features, things, that you can use. I went into it because I really wanted to understand the ethics, the morality, how are companies dealing with these issues? I'm sure we can all implement them, but what are the things that are opportunities and challenges? And I did get some interesting stats on how consumers feel about AI. 40% think it's innovative, futuristic, intelligent. That's all good. 20% though said scary, impersonal, intimidating, intrusive, kind of that stuff. And then less than 5% would categorize AI as trustworthy, friendly, secure, and safe. So, this sentiment, and I think these are not surprising. What was interesting is 74% of Americans think that the government should step in with regulation because it is so big and so scary. So that was kind of interesting. But I listened to companies, McDonald's, Google, Walmart, which I sat through an amazing keynote, which is kind of another topic, the entertainment industry, lawyers. And, they talked about the perils, the problems they've gotten themselves into in terms of discrimination, facial recognition problems that can lead to discrimination, reputation destroying. I mean, they had
intellectual property is a big one too.
Intellectual property, plagiarism, especially in the entertainment industry. So there was a lot of things to be super scared about. But then there were also opportunities. McDonald's talked about they probably catch $50 million in fraud prevention every month because they use AI, which is pretty significant, right? And that's good for all of us. It's good for McDonald's and good for us. And then down to little things like when to change the fry oil for your French fries. And this scared me a little bit because I would have thought they would have this more buttoned up by now.
More buttoned up already.
Yeah, but they said, instead of the store manager deciding, it's time to change the oil, right? You can have sensors and you can use AI to tell you exactly when to change the oil. So it runs this gamut of things, in terms of, tremendous opportunity. And people just light up when they talk about opportunity, but then there's this dark side. And every meeting, every conversation, there's a lawyer involved.
And like almost every year or every other year, we get a new acronym that's supposed to be the big thing, right? Whether it's big data or IoT or 5G, it's typically some sort of acronym. But
right.
this one feels different. This one feels bigger and with more staying power and with more real application potential, as we work through these issues.
Yeah,
certainly on the communications front, there's a lot of opportunity to, and we all work in the communications industry, the three of us, we can see the productivity gains that are likely there. Now we got to make sure the creativity and the actual knowledge base is still there. But my gosh, it's got so much potential.
Yeah, and I think when you think about AI, while I kind of have as a category, one of the trends is that AI is pervasive in everything, right? So it's kind of not a category. It's part of our lives, and everything in the show floor had that. I think on the flip side, there was a lot of humanity in terms of we can't let AI drive us to mediocrity, right? Because that could happen, right? We could just be very lazy. AI needs to facilitate more humanness as opposed to getting rid of humanness. And you'll love this because you love music. One guy on stage, he was in the entertainment industry, and he said, look, AI never would have predicted that the Beatles would be such a hit because it was just this odd, wild human set of occurrences that enabled the Beatles. So there you have it.
True. Tim, I'm hesitating to bring you in here, but I know you have some to add on AI before we get to Melissa's second bucket. I will cut you off at some point, but talk to us about AI.
No, I think Melissa really hit it. It's about AI and everything. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about, whether it's your robot vacuum cleaner, whether it is your cell phone, whether it is your kitchen appliance. Every single device and piece of software that we have over the course of the next few years will have an embedded AI core in it. So when you talk about it, it seems like it's something that's going to stick around. Yeah, it's going to stick around like software. Right? You go back years ago, you go, oh, software, it's all going to be about software. Now we don't talk about software because it's just a thing. It's like air and water. And AI just being a form, right, of software and digital intelligence, it's just going to be impervious. It's going to be in everything. It's going to be saturated through every single product we touch. And we're going to have to get used to that. And, the home building industry has never demonstrated to be the fastest adopter of new technology. And yet the rate of change in AI is so fast. I think it's really going to challenge us of how do we, in home building, adopt AI? How do we use AI to determine how we should price homes? How do we use AI to buy land, to negotiate for us? How do we use AI to decide how to negotiate our supply chain and the materials that we buy, or what materials, or what configurations, what options, how many options, what packages we should? AI can do all of these things, right? And I worry that the rate of change that we're used to in our industry is incompatible with the rate of change that we're seeing in the rest of the world in AI.
Yeah. Although I'm seeing some real glimmers in our industry, even like I was working with Kathy Thomas at ECI, and we were trying to write a description for my talk and title it. She goes, oh, well, let's just see what ChatGPT, tells us to do. And I was like, she clearly uses it all the time, right? So I think there's some really natural entrance, and people are starting to use it. So further.
It's certainly, digital transformation, the digital solutions arena for builders. I think there's going to be a lot of distribution of this intelligence there, and we're gonna need to count on the existing platform providers to kind of sort the wheat from the chaff. and have intelligent discussions. And it was just, but Tim, what you just rambled through was like a menu of general sessions for our digital solutions track in the Housing Transformation Summit. So we can't get to all of it, right away, but there's definitely a lot of things to work through.
And then the other thing that I'd mention, John, is that, AI really becomes an enabler then for other entire categories. And, the next category I'd bring up would be robotics, and it's robotic everything. You walk through CES and it's drones, it's robotic factory equipment, it is human service robots. There's robots now for cooking, for fast food restaurants. There's robots for retail. And a lot of this is being driven by just massive worldwide demographic, changes where we have declining populations in the Western world. There's just not a workforce, to man all of the KFCs and McDonald's out there. So we're going to have robots figure out how to make French fries and make drinks. And there were dozens of companies out there where you could walk up and watch robots cook stir fry and all of the kind of normal, fast food type items that you have. What I found,
it really seems like this long, hangover on robotics and automation, which is it's going to get rid of people's jobs, and there's going to be people who have today's jobs who are going to sabotage it. It seems like we're over the hump on that. Maybe it's just because we don't have enough workers, and people who are workers maybe don't want to do a lot of different tasks anymore. So
there's
those
two things
seem to be coming down.
Yeah, I think there's two things that over the course of the last 10 years with the advancements in processors, sensors, battery capabilities, et cetera, robots have just gotten way better. And of course, software like AI. And then on the other hand, 10 years ago, there was fear mongering. Robots are going to take over. They're going to take everybody's job. Well, now we don't have enough people for the job. So now we're all worried about, well, who's going to do all this stuff? Right? So now there's kind of pull from society going, well, somebody's got to deliver my packages. Somebody's got to make my French fries. Who's that going to be?
But let's narrow in on a home for a second, right? Like so this becomes an attachment category, whether the builders enable it or not. It's going to be in the home. Some of these robotics. What do you see having promise? Not in 15 years, but in the next 2-3 years.
It's now here. That's the difference. And I've kind of coined a term now called robotic home services. And think of every single household task. I am completely aligned really with LG's vision of this kind of what they call work-free home. All right. And I thought that was a beautiful vision. They're looking at every element of work in the home and going, how can we free humanity from work in the home?
Yeah.
How can it just be automatic? Everything from vacuuming, mopping, to washing your clothes, cleaning your windows, cleaning your pool, mowing your lawn,
folding the clothes.
Well, they do.
Yes.
They actually have robots that will do that as too.
How about finding the Tupperware top that goes with the bottom? That'll never be solved.
Well, they don't have that, but they have a laser that actually incinerates the bottom. So at least you don't have any mismatched sets. Okay,
yeah, John, you're getting way ahead on technology.
I was thinking about the things that I have to bend over and.
But you go out there today. There are a dozen companies now with robotic mowers, leaf blowers, snow blowers, robotic pool cleaners, and then you get inside the home. Robotic vacuums and mops are just everywhere. So I think the issue for the new home community though is, are we designing homes for robotic services? Are we separating new from used even further? Because as all of these tools come about, you hit it right on the head. You can buy a robot vacuum for an old home or a new home. The problem is if I have an old home and I have multiple, let's say, step downs, I have a sunken 1-foot living room then my vacuum can't go from room to room in the house. Right? So could we design homes for the future? And the one thing that I'm going to kind of jump to almost my end conclusion is the one thing missing at CES, you've got 150,000 people, thousands of reporters and press from around the world, thousands of companies, all this attention. and there is not a home of the future built in the parking lot. And I think that is a huge miss by our industry, whether it's the apartment of the future or a single family home of the future. I know at IBS, we build, an American living home and, and all that kind of stuff, but it's not really a home of the future. I'm talking about completely rethinking living using all of the technologies we see at CES. You think of the press that we would generate, the focus that we would generate. And we're trying as an industry to separate new homes from used homes. This could be an event to do that. But somebody needs to get the courage to do it.
We can lay the blame at the door of the builders, like, why aren't you, more on top of this and more innovative? But the reality is, where is LG in presenting this information and this vision to the builder, too? It takes two to tango. And too often, these technology companies are hanging out at a high level of R&D and maybe PR and the retail trade, but they don't want to deal with the process mess and the friction of actually working with a builder. And we gotta get them to understand that that's worth it, because otherwise we will continue to have this gap between the potential of the technology and its actual implementation in new homes.
So I had several discussions directly on that point. You'd meet with the company, you'd look at the technology, and say, well, what about the new home industry? And they'd look at you with kind of blank eyes. They actually don't look at the housing industry as new and used. They just look at it as, well, these are going to go into homes, right? So we have a job to make them understand that there's an entire new home community which could actually optimize the use of these products and make them far more effective and far more pleasurable to have in your home. The one example I'll throw out is robot vacuums have really improved. I mean, they really do a great job today. The very first ones came out, a dozen years ago. The batteries didn't last very long. They didn't have very much power. Those days are gone. Battery operated vacuums are absolutely the way of the future. Nobody's going to have a corded device whatsoever. Robotic vacuums are the wave of the future. Robotic mopping is absolutely a wave of the future. But you get one of these, where do you put it in your house?
Right. Where's its little garage?
Right.
Where's its little portal?
And you end up wasting a bunch of floor space in your house and stepping over it.
So we recognize this need for greater collaboration between the manufacturers of these advanced technologies and the builders in terms of accommodating the life of these devices within the home. So we talked about the robotics piece, but there's some more familiar categories where we have that same sort of need where there's innovation, right? Appliances.
Yeah, there's appliances as an example, or security.
Home security.
That's probably a huge example.
Oh, it's a big one. I mean, there are so many different security devices and everything has sensors in it and all of this stuff. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for the providers. It's overwhelming for the insurance companies. It's overwhelming for the consumers, trying to grapple with this. And it was really interesting. I talked to some different companies and all the big players in terms of security. I didn't realize this. You probably know this, John, but I guess we have a huge shortage of 911 operators, right? And first responders. And so with all of this home security, we have false alarms and it's then flooding and causing, just havoc, right? And so, there's all these ideas on how do you get around this? How do you, work through this? And technology can help us to some degree in that we're moving from your security system just giving you data or images to actually giving you intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. So when I look at my security system or I get alerts from it, like we get flooded with alerts of, people coming to our front door or whatever's happening. I actually don't want that. I don't want to know the 50 days in a row that my kids came home at 2:00. I want to know the day when something unusual happens, right? Yeah. Like I want to know the day they don't come home or the day that only one comes home or there's a third person that came into the house, right? That's the kind of intelligence that we're looking for. So we're going from this kind of just data and information to, tell me what I really need to know. And image detection in terms of, okay, somebody was at the door, but can you do object recognition and tell me, was it an animal? What kind of animal was it? Can you tell me, was it a guy? Was it the Amazon guy who I love? Or was it some scary guy that I don't know who it is? So we're moving into that world.
Yeah. I think we get distinctions between humans and pets. That's been around for a while, even for motion sensors.
Yeah.
But like
Right.
scary guy versus good guy, a trusted resource is not.
And looking,
We're not there yet.
right, and looking for
Technology
patterns.
is capable, but we're not
Right.
there.
You're trying to use AI to look for patterns and,
Yes.
and truly get to the point where you're only notified for things that are exceptions and
Odd.
worthwhile.
Right.
It was interesting. I was having a conversation with a company that dealt with indoor air quality, and they pulled up their app and they said, look, here's 77 notifications I got that my fan ran because it needed to clear. And I'm sitting here going, who wants 77 notifications that your fan on your furnace is running?
Right.
Well, but each company kind of thinks, well, I have AI and I have knowledge, so I need to push this
Right.
to the consumer. We
Right.
will become overrun. We will have thousands of sensors in our homes and be overrun with these notifications.
What we heard is consumers are already fatigued with that, because it's like, what do I do with that? But the other thing that I think was important was not all features are created equal. So having this smart home and walking in and it knows to just turn the lights on because I'm home and this is the way I like the lights, that feature is nice, but not as important as telling me that there's smoke in the house or that there's an intruder in the house, right? So they really talked a lot about how do you actually hone in and make sure those features work well. And probably the last key point that I think really speaks to what your mission is, John, and kind of our mission, they said it's getting so complicated, people cannot buy all these parts. They have to buy bundles. The manufacturers and the providers of all these things have got to come together, bundle it. One, there's an affordability issue, right? In terms of, making it somewhat consumable. And then it's about making it so that I can actually use it. These pieces and parts have to work together.
Well, it continues to create opportunity and work for integration companies, right? Because the manufacturers aren't going to be able to anticipate. Just think about how heterogeneous the home builder market is. I always advise the manufacturer, don't have a program, have a process, because anytime you select three things, you're going to alienate 70% of the market. But this complexity, that really creates the need and opportunity for the integrators. Some of them, there's good integrators and bad integrators, and some people can do the technical work, but they can't perform on the job site. And some people don't have the soft skills that they need to really understand what the needs are that they're trying to address. So our friends in the integration community don't need to worry. There's a continued amount of
they even talked about, we went from like, it used to be completely installed for me. Then we went to DIY and now we're kind of doing this hybrid. It's like, I need you to install it for me, but I need you to help me understand how to make it work as well, right? Because it is an ongoing relationship and the pieces and parts get upgraded.
Yeah, right? And I think there's an increasingly growing need for a software platform that integrates all this together. Well, having 400 apps on your phone, each managing one little device in your home, and not talking to each other. And there's some promise out there with Matter and all this kind of stuff that's going to, maybe connect everything in the future. But right now it doesn't, right? Yeah. So getting that kind of master app that pulls in everything and kind of manages it all as a single intelligent home, that need is growing by the day.
Yeah, and over the lifetime too, right? We can't just get it right at the beginning because it's going to need to be, grow and it will need to change in order to work appropriately. And so that piece needs to be tended to. I know Oliver IQ is making a big debut there. Yep. We know those guys forever from the Control 4 and even earlier than Control 4 days, but they're hanging their hat on smart home as a service, on really getting the tail end, the user experience right, and having the right technical hooks in and the business alignment so that the homeowner can have a better experience with all of this technology integration.
They're kind of combining service with software, which is I think useful and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
John, on the other hand, there's just a lot of what I'll call new household appliances, and they're not necessarily new, but they certainly have a fresh take on everything. And the one thing that I'm kind of really intrigued with right now are the heat pump washer dryer and the heat pump washer dryer combinations.
You would be intrigued by heat pump washer dryer combinations.
Well, but listen to me on this thing, right? I mean, one, they're just way more energy efficient, which is great, but they don't require a 220 to be brought to a laundry room. They don't require exhaust from the laundry room. So now you can locate the laundry room anywhere in your home. You can do this now with one machine that does both washing and drying. So I can free up another 10 to 15 square feet in my floor plan so I can get more efficient. So, if we really start to embrace some of this, especially at that kind of lower end of the market where we're trying to hit price points, right? You can free up a bunch of square feet. I don't have to run 220. I don't have to run an exhaust. I can save a bunch of money. And then the federal government on top of that kicks in a ton of it because it qualifies for all of the heat pump appliance rebates. So, I think there's something there that we need to start, thinking about. Right?
And here I was kind of like not that intrigued with that. I was off doing something else, I think, because I was like, oh, that's not very exciting. But that is exciting, right? Like the lifestyle that it enables and the flexibility that it enables. So thank you for being you.
I'm always big on the names of stuff, right? And when I hear heat pump, my brain shuts off. It's just like, I don't what
talk about being a heat pump.
I think some pump, heat pump, some pump, they go together for me, switches off. I know it's an important category, but
when you tell a building you don't have
better names,
20, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I was talking to my Lux Tech friends who are like working on that ownership experience and like long-term support. And I was like, we need better names for this in the luxury market because tech support doesn't sound luxury. It sounds like talking to somebody in South Africa, and
Yeah.
So other appliance stuff. It was interesting. You're starting to see companies like Whirlpool, which I love Whirlpool. I have a lot of Whirlpool KitchenAid appliances, but you don't think of them being at CES, kind of really pushing the frontiers of kind of product innovation. Kind of small feature innovation every year, but truly rethinking appliances. But this year they were there with a completely new approach to insulation, which dramatically shrinks the exterior dimensions of refrigeration, giving you more room inside. It's a much more sleek look. You can tell they're really committed to taking technology and integrating it into their products, rethinking their products. I thought that was kind of interesting. A lot of focus on electrification of everything. So electrification, obviously, of ranges, but also of grilling. A bunch of companies there. And, at first you're going, oh, they're just trying to get rid of charcoal or gas, right, because of some municipal regulations. But what they figured out is that there's real advantages. They can cook more precisely. They can cook more quickly. They can give you the same kind of flavor because you can even add smoke and other things to it. Really interesting, novel solutions in the entire grilling space.
What about AI in the grill? What's going on with AI in the grill?
They do. They all have AI in the grill, John. It actually determines where you are in the process. It sends it all to your app.
Gosh.
You can be swimming
that enhances your manlyhood, right? Doesn't it? Like your grilling skills. I mean, like that's.
It might actually impair your manlyhood to have to abdicate your grilling skills to AI.
I happen to know some pretty rough, good old boy motorsports people up in Colorado, and this guy bought one of the Traeger AI smartphone operated grills. That's all he talks about. And I'm sitting here going, okay, this is like the least likely customer you would ever imagine, right? But he loves it because he's out like on his dirt bike and he's getting, he can control his smoker and everything that he needs, and he comes back and it's all done. So,
sounds like a reality TV show someday.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But there's some other kind of interesting areas, in appliances as well. I think water harvesting, which is a really interesting issue, especially in communities now where, we have some desert communities that are going no more permits until we figure out how to get water. Well, these residential water harvesting units, they can either be done individually for each home, or they can be done on a larger scale for an entire community that actually just pull water out of the air And they create fresh
fascinating.
drinking water.
Yeah, I think that idea of either at the individual unit level or just community-wide utilities,
Yes.
whether it's electrical energy or water or what have you, people don't want to rely on a distant institution whose operation they don't feel like they have good control of and whose price structure is very distant from them. So I think that stuff's on the rise for sure.
And I think for a builder that's sitting there going, look, I can't build because there's no permits being offered, they could go potentially then to them go, look, the homes we build don't need water hookups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have our own water generation. This could be life and death for a builder in some of those markets. So I think it's pretty interesting to see all the people focusing on that area. The other area that's just gigantic right now is energy storage, energy production, and energy management. Obviously, Tesla Powerwall has been out there for a long time as kind of the mature kid on the block. Everybody is coming after them, and with all kinds of different novel solutions, lots of solutions for retrofit, so for the remodeler world that wants to go in and add energy generation, but then also really interesting solutions for the new home build of how you seamlessly put in everything from energy production, energy storage, energy management, smart charging for your car. So, that's I think just a huge area that builders need to be focused on. And there's a lot of really neat things for them. The last area that I'll look at, which surprised me the most, and something, John, you and I have been talking about forever. It's an area that I think is probably one of the biggest opportunities for builders over the next 20 years. And that is, how do we build homes as healthcare centers? Mm-hmm. Meaning, how do we design homes that you don't just live in, but help you live? As we have an aging population and boomers, which have most of the money, right, want to age in place in their home, how can we create homes that look after them? Right. And I don't, from all aspects, meaning the home itself monitors me for devastating issues like falls and strokes and things like that, but also just monitors my heart, respiratory, and all of my vital signs on a regular basis, provides that information to either families and friends or my doctor or myself, right? So that we can prevent any kind of catastrophic illness. Now, that's been a pipe dream, but this year I saw on the market sensors that builders can buy and put directly in their home, for example, to detect fall and to monitor respiration and heart rate of its occupants. And these sensors are $80.
Yeah.
So you actually could have a living in place package that says, look, we have fall sensing in every single room, right? We have vital signs management in every room. You don't see it. It's not a camera, right? So there's no privacy issues involved. It's just, I think, the very first steps of how we can transition the home from a place where we just happen to live to a home where we live better.
Right. And I think, from a consumer perspective, as you age, that's really important to you, but it actually has huge societal implications. We know if we can catch someone who's had a stroke really fast, we can get them to recover, right? And I forget the exact minutes.
2 hours.
Is it 2 hours? Thank you, Mr. Actual Factual. It's like having Mr. Peabody right here with you. It's awesome. But 2 hours, then you're debilitated. Then you need extra care, more expense, more taxing on the family who has to take care of you. So it actually has huge societal implications beyond just, I want to stay in my home forever. So I'm glad to see that that's actually starting to take hold.
And the improvement of quality of life, because if you suffer a fall and you don't get help right away, the likelihood that you will then need convalescent care for the rest of your life is much higher. Strokes, you have this magic 2 hour window.
Right.
If you have a choice of living in a home that will enable you to live at a high quality of life longer, or one that won't, you're gonna pick that new home.
Right.
I'm wondering if we would make more progress in this area if we figured out a way to do it on the luxury home side of things first, right? And a lot of times advanced technology gets pre-engineered and established in the luxury market because it costs more, right?
Yep.
And like getting these technologies to be seamless and not feel institutional. No one wants to feel like they're in the hospital or the nursing home before their time, right? And luxury clients have the ability to pay for that, to be more invisible and embedded. So maybe if we can make some progress there, then it can come down market. And, we we can have more acceptable aesthetics around it as well, because that's part of the equations, right? Could do all this stuff, but I don't want to feel like I'm in a hospital being with my life.
And the neat part is none of these things do that, and I think as a builder, we need to think, how do we manage the air in the home so that we know that we are breathing clean air? Mm-hmm. How do we manage the water, especially with all this PFAS stuff out there? Water and water quality has become huge. So could we, in a home, assure that in this home, you're breathing healthy, clean air, you're drinking healthy, clean water, and by the way, we're monitoring all of your vital signs and any incidents that occur. So this is truly a longevity center. Your home has become longevity center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure.
It becomes a blue zone. You're really creating a blue zone home. That there's your branding. It's a blue zone home. And what do you mean by that? Pure water, pure air.
No, I thought blue hair. No,
blue zone home. Blue zone home. Oh, you need to read longevity stuff. Blue zone home. That's it.
We'll take that one to the agency and workshop it, Tim. So, Melissa, you took in this Walmart keynote, which you thought was surprisingly applicable for builders, and I'm intrigued.
I was so blown away in a way. I went to this and I got to sit on the front row, because we were part of press, so that was kind of exciting. I'm like, but Melissa, don't get excited just because you're like on the front row. But it was fascinating. So we got to hear from the Walmart CEO, and then he had a surprise guest. He had the Microsoft CEO, his buddy Satya, just pop on the stage, which everybody got excited about. But what I found really interesting, this is their, I believe it's their mission statement. I'll read it. We are a people-led, technology-powered, omni-channel retailer dedicated to helping people save money and live better. So people-led, technology-powered, omni-channel retailer. That's the home building industry, right? I mean, and you and I have talked about this. I've been at your events, and I am constantly pounding this need for this seamless digital physical experience. And especially in the home building industry, we have kind of our online people and presence, and then we have like the physical world, and never the two shall meet. And they're very disconnected. But they're working really hard to come up with this seamless experience, and they called it adaptive retail, is what they called it. So we have cool. We have a new word, not like blue hairs, but
not blue hair, blue zone,
adaptive retail, a little more sexy, don't you think? Here, let's
blue hair, blue zone.
Let's just turn the camera this way, right? Shall we? But I actually was pleasantly surprised, because I just never been a fan of Walmart. I'm like not anti-Walmart, but
you're not their target customer.
What?
You're not their target customer.
Okay. But they actually have some really interesting missions, and we can't cover them all today, but they focus a lot on sustainability and inclusivity, really, really big issues. And they have an opportunity, because they're so big, they could make or break our ecosystem, right? They're just have this huge footprint. So they had some really cool features, which we can cover at a later time, about how they're making this seamless, adaptive retailing experience.
Yeah, and we've all been talking for years about lessons that could be learned from retail, right? Which is, it gets the builder out of the mindset of, I'm a construction company. No, you're delivering dreams, right? And so you are a retailer, and this idea that there's digital retailing as well as physical retailing, going brick and mortar, literally, and electronic, and how do we marry those things up so they're seamless is certainly a lot of work to be done, and opportunity to be seized by doing that, for sure. All right. Well, I think go ahead.
I've got two more kind of flyers for the future that I just kind of throw out there real quick. The first issue is sensors and power technology. And this is for kind of further out thinking for us, but we have talked a lot about constant cost reduction in sensor technology, miniaturization of sensor technology, and the fact that they require less and less power. At the same time, we have all of these initiatives in the power industry of how can we wirelessly charge devices. Whether that be by scavenging radiation from cell signals and TV signals and things like that in the air, right? Or remote wireless charging that you would put, in your home. There's been so many advancements there. The day that we're going to be able to put now sensors in the wall cavities of homes and under our roofing, to determine whether we have water or pest intrusion. So imagine how we would change the industry. If a new home, the moment there was water intrusion into a cavity, we got an alert and we knew exactly where it was. So we don't wait until there's rot and there's mold and there's black mold and there's a huge event, and we know the moment that the structure kind of has failed and we have water intrusion. And the ability to do that now with this kind of new wireless and kind of energy, recharging, or there's a vent recharging. I went to one battery company. They make battery on a little thin sheet of paper that's water activated. So the battery itself sits there dormant until liquid water hits it. Once liquid water hits it, it turns alive and it sends out a signal. Yeah. And those kinds of things could really revolutionize. And you really wonder whether the home insurance industry would be willing to subsidize putting all of that in our homes, because it would avoid all large claims in our industry then.
Yeah. To me, how do we get the service providers that are associated with those fixes already as part of the equation, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about how utilities have driven a lot of the energy innovation, there's service providers on pest control. There's service providers on remediation from mold and water damage. How do we integrate it? And we were talking about this, my idea of gutter cleaning as a service, right? It's like, whatever the device is, it doesn't do 100% of the job. Right. Somebody still needs to backstop it and probably, either be the field service component when the device to device communication or remediation doesn't work, or to kind of own that. So how do we get these service providers into the mix on the solution and not have the devices without the true 100% service component involved with it? That's just something that strikes me on those things.
But I do think that, this is probably not ready for prime time today. So builders aren't sitting here going, I better go get all my sensors and start putting them in my roof.
Yep.
But clearly the collision of these technologies is making a future. It's starting to create our future that we may be able to create truly smart homes and understanding the long-term care and maintenance and the viability of the structure and everything else. The last thing I'll leave it to John is communication technologies. And, there's been a lot of stuff about, obviously Zoom went crazy and Teams and all that kind of stuff, during the pandemic. Builders are suffering today because they don't have the manpower. So many times they are centralizing sales where there's one sales team, but they may have 10 communities, right, in a metro market. So they don't actually have salespeople at all of their individual places. The one thing that we're starting to see, I saw a lot at CES, was the effective development of personalized avatars and holograms. So this is not some cartoon avatar. This is a digital image of you that, as you speak, it projects wherever you need it to be project an image of you. So imagine walking into a model home and there's a screen there with a life-size person, and that person is the person. That person is Kate. It's not some weird avatar. It's Kate. It's a life-size rendition of her, and her lips are moving, her head's moving exactly the way they would be moving because she's talking, and it's simply transporting her to your location. You think of other applications. We have now design centers that are doing, virtual design centers. And you've got your designer in Phoenix, let's say, but your buyer's in LA. They can meet in the design center with avatars in the home that are, again, not cartoon characters. These are the actual people.
Right. And forget Phoenix to LA, or North LA versus South LA.
Yes, right? Exactly. But
so we integrate that with self-guided tours too, right? We need to talk about that in our self-guided tour session.
And we're the reason this is all gonna become mainstream is both Teams and Zoom are all working feverishly on implementing this within Zoom and Teams as well, so that you can use these lifelike avatars.
Well, and you could make your avatar look like 10 years younger, right? That would.
This is just replication.
20 pounds lighter and 10 years younger. I'll take it. So Nancy Jean DeRusso does the finishes and personalization track. She and I were talking about when does the designer meet with the buyer after the initial sale. And it shouldn't be at the design center. It should be at the model home,
Yes.
right? But time space continuum issues are huge. And how easy is that to make it happen? But technology like that could enable the walkthrough and the transition from I bought the home to I'm thinking about my options and I want to walk through the model and refresh on what was in there.
So imagine, you do a Matterport tour, right, which is very inexpensive, right, of your model home. And then imagine the moment that you contract for that, your designer says, hey, let's go meet in the model and walk through, and I'll show you all the different kind of options in this model and some of the choices that we did. And then we can actually go meet in your home. And I've already picked some ideas for you. And you have,
This is all virtual.
This is all virtual.
Meeting in the model.
You're literally meeting in the metaverse. So, I know there's a lot of hype about the metaverse, but builders have one of the best applications for the metaverse that there is. We are going to create this virtual world. It's not an entire fake world. The virtual world is your future home. And we can put you in that 3D container with your advisors, and they can lead you through that entire selections and design process.
Yeah.
So
you're at hold on. You're at CES, right? And so, there's one last topic I want to dig into because you're at CES, right? So CES really, it was born with color TV, right? So if there's a category of stuff that CES has always been about, it's televisions, it's video displays.
Yeah.
So, and then one of the things that I've been talking to builders about is there's the Bureau of Labor Statistics does an American time use study every year. And if you look at what people do when they're awake, the number one thing people do at home is sleep. And we have an opportunity to address that as an industry too, because there's all sorts of sleep solutions, and a sleep enhanced home would appeal to a lot of specific demographics, and it's part of that healthy message that you talked about. But the number two thing after sleeping, the thing that they do most when they're awake, is watch TV.
Yep.
Right. So I know we all talk about these little screens, et cetera, but they watch TV.
Yep.
And so builders have historically not done a good job of accommodating that. And the reasons are not buyer centric. The reasons are because the margins are so slim on the TVs that they've never been able to get enough of the revenue piece on the TV to make it really a featured item in the model home. However, what you're seeing in terms of TVs, some of these big, enormous screens, those aren't just consumer electronics sell-through opportunities, right? They require different sizes of rooms and finishes to accommodate. So really is a builder opportunity beyond the electronics, gets into the structural design of the home itself, right?
Yeah, I saw all kinds of issues. As you said, CES is about screens. There is an entire pavilion that is basically screens, right? And from a home perspective, there's a few key takeaways. One, bigger, and better. So now you're talking about how do you accommodate 100 to 150 inch micro LED screens, right, in a home? Well, do you even have the wall space to do that? How do you design your room so that there's a place to put something like that in a way to arrange the furniture, right, such that you can have that kind of screen? Because it certainly is impactful, and it's certainly going to be on everybody's wish list. The other thing is the advancement in laser projection, both short throw and long throw projection. So what this allows is in your master bedroom not to clutter up any of your wall with screens. So you don't have any walls with screens, right? You use one of the walls as a projection place. Your screen is in the roof. But to do that, you have to pre-wire all this stuff, right? So builders need to start envisioning what is a perfect bedroom environment, and how are we going to integrate all of these advanced technologies and make it easy for the consumer? Because coming back later, that's an expensive, retrofit. Right. The other interesting thing that we saw was translucent screens. That's kind of one of the big things this year. And translucent screens allow you now to place television as partitions between rooms, or even in front of windows or other areas, because they're translucent glass until you turn them on. And once you turn them on, they now become a complete TV screen. So that gives us some flexibility.
Well, and we're back to, if we can design our homes with these things in mind, that's why you buy new.
That you buy
right?
new because they're simply better to live with. That's right.
Right.
All right. Well, this has been an awesome report. I think it was a little longer than we thought it was going to be, but that's because there was so much packed in it. 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. That's one of our mottos. Or I like to say abbondanza. Abbondanza, it's Italian, right? And when my mom used to have Easter or Christmas, people would take home Tupperware full of lasagna or manicotti, right? So that's kind of our goal at Tech Home Builder, AE Ventures, is I'm going to say abbondanza instead of 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag.
I'm glad we could fill your Tupperware today.